Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host Jarrod, and joining me tonight are Liam and Sean. How are you, Liam?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Getting ready for Christmas. Just got a couple more days at school, then that's me off for a couple of weeks holiday. So, just getting through it.
And how are you, Sean?
Yep, all wrapped up for the big school holiday, 5-6 weeks, whatever it is. Got my ice in the freezer as well, so I can have a nice little glass of ice water just to sit my testicles in during Christmas Day when it's 43 degrees. It's going to be balls hot.
It's going to be hotter than Satan's balls, we call that over here. So
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I woke up this morning, found an ice cube in my bed. I threw it on the fire, and it went.
Oh, jeez. I was wondering.
Absolutely freezing. Yeah.
I was wondering how long it'd take you, Liam, because my missus was listening to last week's pod, and she goes, or today, and she goes to me, "What's with Liam telling his bad dad joke at the start of the podcast last week?" And I said, "You obviously don't listen in every week. So first of all, lift your game, wifey, and second of all, Liam, you lift your game too."
Hey, it's a trope. It's a trope, and I'm sticking to it.
Fair enough.
What did one snowman say to the other snowman?
Don't know.
Can you smell carrots?
Oh dear.
I'm almost tempted to just start again. Oh, shit.
Welcome to Celtic Down Under.
Yes.
We've lost the plot, everyone. We've lost it. It's out of control. So I think it's not just us who have lost our shit in the last 24 hours. There's been some interesting developments going on over in Scotland with the old current situation that everyone listening in would be aware of. So the old Sturgeon, in a talk was it yesterday, comes out and says everyone, as of Boxing Day, will only be able to have 500 people per game. So every club. So got a few little things that I've seen floating around the traps today that I want to just rattle off before we get stuck into it. But we're going to break this conversation down into two separate parts. The first bit is going to be about the current situation and the reduced capacity. And then the second part of the conversation is going to be about clubs wanting to move the winter break forward to after Boxing Day. Okay, so we'll do it that way so that we don't cross over and go on tangents and go all over the place and make absolutely zero sense. So for me, going about the 500 people thing makes no sense in the simple fact. I understand the logic behind it, because it's not when you're at the ground that's the issue. It's the getting there. It's the people going to pubs. It's the people in the buses. It's trains. It's cars. It's all that sort of stuff to get to and from the games, which is what they're trying to stop the transmission happening in that sort of situation. So I can understand that. But the random figure of 500 people, it doesn't seem to be any mathematical sense to that. Maybe Sean, you'll have something on that can make that make sense, Jimmy. But the 500 people thing, I think is odd, because if you look at it, Celtic Park, 60,000 people at the stadium, and then you have a look at Alloa, or Alloa, however you say it. This is where it gets weird. So Alloa having 500 people at the stadium means they're still going to be at 16.1% capacity, yet Celtic, with our stadium size, will be at 0.83% capacity. To me, that's the thing I'm finding weird about the 500 number. It's not about the reason for limiting the crowds and all that sort of stuff. That's not the main thing for me that's getting me. It's just that number. But I'll throw to you, Sean, for your part on it.
Yep. As a biology teacher, I can shed some light on this. But we do have to also remember that politics, science is just part of the decision. Politics is the major deciding factor. And the reason that they've obviously chosen Boxing Day is to avoid any kind of civil unrest with non-football fans who want to see their family on Christmas Day. So they're just going to try and ride it out until then. But the problem with this new variant is we're just in the preliminary stages of collecting data on it. There's some preliminary data that says it's more transmissible. So before, we can't be using the guidance we had before, which was like, if it's an outdoor setting, it's probably fine. If it's, the 1.5 meter for 20 minutes, it's not really valid anymore, because it looks like this one has a greater transmissibility. But what it and it is more evasive to the vaccines than the Delta. What is some people are going, well, it's less pathogenic, which means fewer people in hospital. It's fewer people in hospital as a percentage. So if you have, so say the previous one had a hospitality rate of like 0.5%. So for every 1,000 people, then 5 would end up in intensive care or whatever. Well, you're getting 100,000 a day for Omicron, and maybe it's 0.2% go to hospital. So that's 200 people out of 100,000, are going to end up in intensive care. Even if it's a smaller percentage of pathogenicity, if you're getting greater transmission, you're still going to end up with more people in hospital. So in answer to your question, why is it 500? Why is that an arbitrary number? Why are we not basing it on percentages? It's a political decision. And the political decision is you have a mathematical model. So epidemiology is based on mathematical models where you have all these factors like, when you were at school, you had X, Y, and Z in a formula and there was numbers either side of them. It's kind of like that, except there's probably about 20 different variables. And if you adjust variables up and down within that formula, you're going to get an output which is going to, the R naught, the R reproductive value of the virus is going to go down or up, depending on the input variables. So what they've done is they've went, okay, this one can go up, this one can go down. And outdoor gatherings, if we set that to 500, no matter the context, we're going to get a decrease in cases. And it's as simple as that. They've got a simple epidemiological model. They could make it more complicated if they want, but they've, in this case, because they're saying it's only for 3 weeks, they're just probably saying, well, football doesn't get an exception here. We're just going to, and even though football was specifically name dropped in the First Minister's speech, she said all outdoor events, including football. So she knows that we're exceptional, but she's also saying, don't care. So it is a political thing, even though the epidemiological model isn't. So she's taking a objective model and making a political decision. Does that make sense?
Hope the listeners are still with us and I didn't have too many big words there because made sense. It's starting to get there.
The too long didn't read version is it's a mathematical model that doesn't take account of specific circumstance.
Yeah, so the follow-up to that before I throw to you, Liam, is you had John Swinney come out saying that the Cup final was a potential super spreader event and he should have clamped down on that beforehand. And talking about politics and everything, no one is mentioning the 50,000 people that were at Ibrox the day before the Cup final as potentially also being a super spreader. But then they're zombies, so they're already on this shit anyway. So, but yeah, I'll throw it over to you, Liam, for your take and thoughts on it.
Right, now, I don't have a background in the sciences, so my opinion here is going to be more personal opinion based and less fact based as Sean's was. Sean was very well informed on it. I'm given more of a as I see it kind of take without that level of knowledge. So that's a disclaimer right away. I'm quite annoyed actually about this, not because of the limitations on crowds, because to be purely selfish about it, as a guy who lives in Japan, whether there's 500 or 50,000 in the stadium doesn't affect my ability to watch the game. So my day-to-day life is not affected by this, right? Although I really sympathise with season ticket holders, especially those who put up with the god-awful broadcasting that Celtic put on last season that was clearly substandard, and they paid a lot more for it than we as international supporters did if we took a Celtic TV subscription for exactly the same product. But I'm noticing a lot of overlap with the people online who are particularly vocal about this. The ones who are roaring and greeting now about, oh, this is terrible, this is tyranny, how can the government do this to us, Sturgeon's a dictator, all this crap. They're the exact same people who were throwing a temper tantrum 3 weeks ago when they were told they needed a vaccine passport to go to the game. And I'm like, well, guys, you were warned. You were told, get your boosters, get your vaccines, or this could happen. Now, the majority of people did, and fair play to them, well done. It's not their fault that this new variant is now able to evade vaccines, but that's the way virology works. Sometimes these things happen. That's why you need to have a new flu shot every year, right? But this very vocal minority are just going to bitch and complain no matter what happens. And I think, now I'm no fan of politicians in general. I will hold my hands up and say I vote SNP, but I do so simply because of my belief in Scottish independence, not because I think they're a particularly great political party. They are the best of a bad lot, as far as I'm concerned. But I think the First Minister and her advisors are in a no-win situation here. If they do this now, football fans feel like they're being victimised, right? If they don't do it and 10,000 people die in the next month of the Omicron variant, which is possible because the level of pathogen, as Sean said, early research indicates it might be less pathogenic. But that COVID generally takes a month to kill people, right? And this Omicron variant has only been around for just over a month. So we don't know yet exactly how infectious it is and exactly how deadly it is, and whether it's more or less infectious and more or less deadly than the Delta variant. The trend seems to be towards more infectious and less deadly, but we will not know that for probably another 6 weeks. Am I right in that, Sean? Is that correct?
Yep, maybe even longer. But yeah,
right.
But there's early evidence that the booster gives short-term protection against Omicron, whereas just being on the 2 doses basically does nothing.
Yeah, that's something that's affecting me in Japan, actually, because I've had my 2 shots, and we've only had, I think, 30 cases of Omicron so far because we've basically shut the border. But they're talking about bringing our boosters forward. I wasn't due to get mine until next April. I'm probably looking at getting it in February now, hopefully. They're looking at knocking 2 months off the booster time. I mean, medical people are getting theirs already. Pensioners are going to start getting theirs in January. And then as a teacher, I'm in the next priority group because of the amount of people that I'm exposed to every day at work. So I'm looking at February.
My mum and dad in Scotland have already got their boosters. My brothers are due theirs and have had the letter to come in and get it. One of my friends just did a walk-in and got his yesterday. I think the 3 weeks to get those boosters up more than anything is a good idea.
Yeah.
We could argue about the 500, the arbitrary nature of choosing numbers to fit into this mathematical model all day. But I think creating a gap in time for just getting the boosters done, because there's strong evidence that is going to be largely beneficial. And in terms of your point, Liam, about foresight, can I just make a call back to some people who did have foresight that this could happen, namely the Celtic board, who refused to guarantee Sevco tickets for the derby on the 2nd of January.
Spot on.
In case something like this did happen, and here we are, it has happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we guaranteed them those tickets, there'd be 500 fucking Sevco fans sitting in Celtic Park next week.
Oh dear, that's a horrible thought.
No chance.
Actually, just to touch on the fact that I think the reason why Swinney didn't refer to Ibrox as a super spreader is because, correct me if I'm wrong, but from reading the Lord of the Rings books as a kid, I don't think orcs can be killed by conventional weapons or diseases.
Different species, so it's
aye.
It's not a zoonotic disease.
No. Anyhow, back to what I was saying. I think that the current steps are necessary, and I think that the government are doing the best they can in a very, very difficult circumstance. Individual people are going to agree and disagree on whether or not this is a good idea, and I think there's arguments for both cases, but the government had to make a call, and they made the call. And timing's crap. You know, we all want to see us, you know, everybody wants to be there when Kyogo rips Rangers a new one on New Year. But, you know, if we have to do that 3 weeks later when we've got a couple more Japanese players in the team, I'd be quite happy with that.
Well, we'll use that as the segue to another part that we're talking about. So the easy way to fix this situation is it's going to be a 3-week restriction. And apparently 10 clubs have said that they want to bring the winter break forward that week early. The only two that were against it was Rangers and, was it Livy? What's the other one?
Ross County.
Ross County. Okay, I couldn't remember which one it was. I knew it was one of those two. So, like, the ongoing joke is, okay, so who are we going to loan to Ross County to get them on board to get that vote? We need. I heard that on another.
Our goalkeeper already? Duhan, is he there?
I don't think so. He's down in England, I thought. Duhan was down at Tranmere or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, there's the solution. We'll loan them Barcas if they don't cooperate.
Ross County have got 2 home games and 2 away games.
Yep.
So I'm not quite sure why they're against it.
Who knows? It could have something to do with what I was just about to say, which is Aberdeen have come out and said that they've got 2 home games as well in the run-up to all of this, and that they'll lose more than £750,000 if they have to go from a full stadium back to just 500 in the stadium, just from this little shutdown that they're looking at doing where they're restricted for 3 weeks. So, and that's including the winter break. So if you've got that sort of situation there, it's not ideal. Now, on top of that, Alan Burrows, who's your chief executive from Motherwell, he put out a fair income good tweet here that I want to read because this summed it up perfect, the overall thought of it. And yeah, I just want to get this on the record because every time I've ever seen anything he's tweeted before, I think, what an absolute flog. But he's actually nailed this one. So he's written, COVID-19 is not going away and we must find ways to slow the spread. But today's announcement and the restriction to just 500 is incredibly frustrating. Most pertinently, it is a serious blow for fans who have been through so much and rely on football as a method of supporting themselves mentally with some normality and release. It is also a difficult situation for the clubs themselves who have had such a torrid time trying to keep their heads above water. Restrictions to this level are, ironically, worse than a full lockdown as you retain a significant element of your cost base and have virtually no means to commercialise the event. You also have the huge issue of trying to select 500 fans from a highly engaged pool of people who are all desperate to attend. Fan versus fan, how do you make that fair? We should start with the winter break now and rearrange these matches when all fans have the chance to attend at a later date when hopefully restrictions have eased. The way we increase the likelihood from 0 currently that fans can watch the games live, all matches are played under the same parameters and clubs can commercialise the fixtures in line with current budgets. During that time, we put our facilities and platform at the disposal of the local health authorities to ensure as many booster vaccinations can be administered as possible. I don't think I've seen anyone as succinct as that tweet there that he's put out the whole lot. Like, it's spot on. The commercial side they brought up with Aberdeen and then him saying about commercialising, like you're not going to get fans in, you're going to lose money, you're still going to have to pay staff, groundskeepers, all that sort of stuff. Then on top of that, you've got the whole element of it's what's fair to the fans because of what they've gone through and the mental aspect of it, as well as the physical aspect of being in the game. And then on top of it, again, you've got what he's saying about making your stadiums available for boosters. Like, you know, it's the most common sense thing to do in this whole thing would be, okay, you've got a break coming up in a week's time, push it forward, done deal. Like, and it's not a Celtic Rangers thing, and that's the key thing here. Like, ideally, I want to play them on the 2nd because I think they're there to be taken, and that would put them in that downward spiral that we used to do every time going into the break, where we'd beat them, then they'd go in there, we'd go in our camp, we'd come back and hit the ground running. So for me, it's got nothing to do with, you know, a Celtic and Rangers thing or an East of Scotland, West of Scotland thing. Nothing to do with that at all. Got to do what's right for the public. And above all else, I'd rather, if they're going to bring it forward a week, great. We'll have a week off the pod too. If everyone's getting a week off for Christmas, we won't have to record next week. We can enjoy our Christmas, New Year's. Everyone out there can enjoy their Christmas, New Year's together. And we don't have to worry about football for a couple of weeks. Like, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I'll throw to you, Sean, for your take on it.
Well, it's pretty straightforward to me why Sevco don't want to do it. First of all, we've got all our players literally hamstrung, so they'd rather have us in a weakened state, and they would also rather play us behind closed doors. That's fine. But on top of that, they only have one home game, so they're taking a selfish viewpoint there. And I think the other reason as well is they've got 3 players away at the African Cup of Nations with Nigeria. Now, best case scenario from their point of view, so the group games for Nigeria are 11, 15 and 19th of January. And I believe the next Sevco game after the break is 21st or 22nd of January, whatever the cup game is that weekend. 22nd, sorry, or 23rd against... I can't remember who they drew. Some Diddy team, I'm sure. So basically, they would have their players at the African Cup of Nations not missing a single game. So if this 3-week window gets shifted, then those players are going to miss games. Aribo, Balogun, and Calvin Bassey.
Bassey or Sakala?
Calvin Bassey, is he not Nigeria? I don't think Sakala's in the tournament. I don't think Zimbabwe qualified. Yeah. But yeah, so if Nigeria lose every game, those players are going to miss like 10 days minimum or whatever. If Nigeria get through, they're going to miss even more games. So it's very likely that the rescheduled Celtic Rangers game is going to land in that window. So they're obviously going to kick up shit. And if nothing else, they having empty stadiums benefits them, as we've seen last year, less pressure, etc. Mm-hmm. So if I was in their position, I'd probably take the same stance. So I'm not going to kill them for it. But they could at least be honest about it. And I don't think they are being. I think they're just posturing. And yeah, how can you argue with that, what Alan Burrows says? I don't understand why Ross County are against it. I really don't. I don't get that at all. Maybe because they only get 2,000 fans anyway, and it's not a big dent to them. But it doesn't make any sense to me to not bring it forward 3 weeks.
You'd think it would make sense to them, though. Look how much travelling support we took up there for a midweek game. And if you've got, say, 2 home games in that time and you get travelling support coming as well, like, it's money in your pocket. So, I don't know.
Yeah, the thing I don't get about it is that as Alan Burrows kind of alluded to in his tweet, which I agree was excellent, especially the part at the end about turning stadiums over for vaccination centres. That's something that in Japan, whenever there's an earthquake or a tsunami or whatever, stadiums just become relief centres. It's like that's just standard practice. Stadiums and sports centres all. I mean, when we had a big typhoon here a couple of years ago, and the local Olympic Stadium actually housed homeless families for about 3 or 4 months after the disaster, because their homes were basically washed out. So the infrastructure is there to convert these large-scale areas into emergency relief centres, or in this case, vaccination centres, which would require a similar, perhaps slightly more complicated setup.
That's what they did in America, Liam. Sorry to just cut you off, but they did that with the NBA stadiums in America and like the NFL stadiums. They went into towns, opened up these stadiums and just turned them into, you come down one gate, you go down the aisles, you get vaccinated, you walk across, and they staggered it so there was no crossover. You go out another aisle and exit, see you later. So it was socially distanced, and they did that. And then what you're saying about the families living in the stadiums in Japan, it's the same as when Katrina hit New Orleans back in the day. Like, they had the Superdome down there where people were living in there. There was like 20,000 people were living inside the football stadium.
Yeah.
Do you know what the NFL are doing just now?
No, what's that?
They basically made it, I don't know if you know, but in the summer they made it quote-unquote mandatory that you had to have your double-dose vaccine, so that, well, they didn't make it mandatory, like you could still not do it, but you had to follow different protocols that were much stricter if you didn't have it. So basically there was a strong incentive to get the double dose. And now they've made it mandatory to have the booster. So, and that's roughly 6 months since the double dose was mandatory. So that checks out. And what they're doing basically now is if you're boosted, they're not even going to bother testing you unless you have symptoms. So basically, because until this, they've just changed it this week. Because before it was the whole thing. The protocol before was if you're vaccinated, you just need to return 2 negative tests 24 hours apart and you can play again. Now they're not even doing that. They're saying if you're boosted, we're not even going to bother testing you unless you have symptoms. So they're basically saying go nuts, take COVID, spread it around unless you have symptoms.
And then you look at what happened, and they've had like over 100 people in the last week, players, test positive. So that shows how well's going on there. And then you look at the NBA, they've got things like you can't play like Kyrie Irving, who plays for Brooklyn Nets. He can't even go and train with his team in New York because he's not vaxxed. So the rules are you can't be in an indoor venue training, whatever, unless you're vaccinated. So he hasn't played a game this season. And in Canada, for the Toronto Raptors, you've got the same situation over there. If you're not double vaxxed and you don't have a negative test, you've got to get it like in the 24 hours before you go. You can't come into Canada for any games up there.
Yeah, and they're basically really strongly disincentivizing anti-vax attitudes. And these guys are earning millions. They have to weigh up millions of dollars and, missing games versus their belief about being vaccinated or not. And as far as I'm aware, the Scottish football has no rules or incentives for players to get vaccinated. And the testing's a joke compared to other places. The policies are... Well, we're pretty much... If you compare our league to any of the professional leagues in the USA, we're just an absolute shambles, to be honest. That St Mirren are having to isolate all these players regardless of what their symptoms are or their results are. It doesn't support the science. It's just a financial decision, Well,
it's not much better over here in the A-League, let's be honest, because Melbourne City... We had the Melbourne Derby last weekend, and Melbourne City had 6 players test positive during the week, and because Victory played against them, pretty much the whole Victory squad's now isolating until they get negative tests as well as close contacts from playing. So, and then you've had the FFA Cup, which was supposed to be 2 games played, but like Victory was supposed to be playing against Scott McDonald's team up at the Gold Coast Knights tonight, and that game didn't go ahead because like the Victory guys had to isolate. So, yeah, it's not much better over here.
Do you know, it's a bizarre thing. Like the whole anti-vax thing it's just not an issue in Japan. It really isn't. I mean, like, there are older people here who are worried about vaccines because there were some, I'm going off on a wee bit of a tangent here, but there were some vaccine-related scandals in the late 80s, early 90s here with I think it was a defective flu vaccine or something, but there was a problem with a vaccine and some kids got really sick and I think a few people died. And since then, people here have naturally been quite scared about vaccines. But with COVID, the message has got through. Look, the vaccine might make you sick for a couple of days. This disease could fucking kill you, right? It's, and that message has got clear. And I think we're now sitting at something like 92% of the population have been double vaccinated now. We're one of the highest rates in the world, which, considering that Japan didn't even start vaccinating the general public until June, that's incredible.
I've not fact-checked this, but I heard that USA was at about 65%. Yeah. I've not fact-checked that, so don't repeat it, but that's what I'd heard on a secondary source.
Don't repeat it, but don't repeat it, Sean. Just say it on a podcast.
No, but the thing is, that would just about match up with the political division in the US, wouldn't it? Because it'd be about 35% of people that would be the strongly pro-Trump, and so by proxy, probably strongly anti-vax.
In WA, we've passed 90% for at least first dose.
Yeah,
but yeah, like the double dose, like I said, double dose isn't doing it. We need that booster for the Omicron. So I think that's the solution,
Aye. I mean, ultimately, another one that's been getting at me recently amongst Celtic supporters, I'm ashamed to say, online, has been people saying like, "Oh, well, this just proves vaccines don't work." I'm like, mate, why do you get a flu shot every year? Viruses change, viruses evolve. See, if you'd have just got your 2 shots 6 months ago instead of throwing a fucking tantrum, none of this would have happened. But that's the reality. We are gonna be looking at getting COVID shots. Sean, you might disagree with me on this, but I'm thinking probably for the next 5 years anyway, we're looking at getting COVID shots every year, aren't we?
The Pfizer CEO reckoned every year for 7 years, and then he actually intimated that it might be indefinite.
Yeah,
but he was saying could be every year.
Yeah, and I think that's just that's a small price to pay for some returning to some semblance of normality. But to cut a long story short, Rangers are being selfish about this whole thing. Had they not created so much ill will towards other teams with their behaviour ever since they came back from the dead, I think it could have been possible to negotiate. I think Celtic could have sat down with them and said, look, we'll play the next Glasgow derby once your players are back from Africa. I'm sure that could have been negotiated. We could have played the next game in March or something. There's been seasons where it's happened before because of cup ties, whatever. We've played them twice in a week. There's no reason why we couldn't do that again.
There was a time a few years back where we played them 3 times in the space of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't and that was because Phil O'Donnell died that year, and there was quite a tasteless tweet by some
scumbag
Sevco fan. Did you see it?
Yeah.
In relation to that,
filthy prick.
Fair not to talk about it.
Let's not give the bastard the publicity. Let's just move on.
Yep. All right. So, final whip around here. Should the winter break be moved forward? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. It's
no question.
There you go. That's the right thing to do. Get it done. Get on with it.
And look, just getting up the Huns is just a cherry on top of the right decision.
Okay, so we normally start off our pods reviewing the games that have happened since our last podcast, but we had to get into that one first of all. So if you're still with us, thanks for listening in and listen to us just rattle on about all sorts of crap, so we appreciate it. So we'll start off with Ross County 1, Celtic 2. Lil Abada scored. Baldwin scored for them. Starfelt got sent off. And then Ralston, what a guy. Pretty much, was it 6 seconds? 6 minutes and 6 seconds of stoppage time when that happened. So, yeah, it's, I don't know, we absolutely dominated that game. It's the easiest way to sum it up. Dominated it. Scoreboard didn't reflect how it was overall. Got the win at the end. I joked last week about playing Ralston up front in the cup final. Well, I almost want it to happen now after that game. What was your take on the game, Liam?
I thought it was fantastic. It really was elating. Again, as I've said so often in the last couple of months on here, that's a game last season we would not have won. The heads would have went down when that Ross County equaliser went in. And then the completely unjust red card. Basically, Starfelt gets a yellow card for having the audacity to get elbowed in the face. Then he gets a second yellow for something which I'm not even sure if it was a foul, let alone a booking. It's just disgraceful. But you know what? That just makes the victory all the sweeter, because I just love it when everything that could go wrong goes wrong and we still come out with a win. It's even that's more satisfying to me than beating a team like Ross County 5-0. Beating them with the absolute last gasp winner when you've been totally up against it. It's such a great feeling, and it's nights like that win championships.
Also, Liam, you're saying that it's like that to win championships, but it's also, I think, the bounce and the pep in our step that gave our guys. Like if we went up there and dropped the points and come back with a draw, to then come back all the way from up in the Highlands to play a cup final. Come off the back of that? I don't know. But the fact that you get that last minute winner, then you come back and it's like, yeah, everyone's up and about. The whole support was all over the place. Everyone was so cheerful and happy. It's a great thing to see.
Aye. Do you know, talking about that actually, I don't like to go after individual journalists normally, but I'm going to call out that Muppet Tom English of Radio Scotland, because he said something in the run-up to the cup final, which was just the ultimate in stupidity. He said, yeah, Celtic have won 5 of the last 6 games. He said, but they've only won them by 1 goal, so that shows that they're beatable.
Apparently not.
Yeah, but how does winning 5 games in a row show that you're beatable? In what universe does that logic work? I just.
Well, what I've seen. Sorry.
I'm just
Well,
that clown gets paid 50 grand a year to say pish like that. I just don't believe it.
I just wanted to piggyback on the point you were making there, Liam, about the single goal victories. Just looking over our last 9 games, 7 of the last 9 games, including Europe, have been victories by a single goal. Beat Dundee United 3-0, and we lost to Leverkusen. That's the 2 that aren't. And just looking through them, St Johnstone 1-0 in the League Cup semi, Hearts 1-0 where Robbie Nielsen blew his top, Motherwell 1-0 where again Graham Alexander, Malky Mackay came out after, David Gray and the Hibs players came. Basically, 6 of those 7 wins, the managers have came out afterwards and blamed the referee for us winning. And that is absolute madness. Anyone that watched these, just having that single goal victory just gives them that excuse to blame a referee. Do you know what I mean? Dundee United manager didn't say anything like that. Dundee United manager probably had 1 decision or 2 go against him. But these other teams had 1 or 2 go against him. And it's like, yep, well, we only lost by 1 goal. So that's the reason. I don't know if there's some sort of collective madness. We should have had I don't want to talk about it yet, but that Alan Muir in the Ross County game, Malcolm Mackay's talking about, oh yeah, we'll just play until Celtic score. Well, we should have had a penalty 2 minutes before we scored that goal. Clear as day, guy's arm was up, pure handball. And Alan Muir, the referee, who saw a handball at Ibrox on Saturday, didn't see a handball at Dingwall in Celtic's favour, and didn't see a handball in Celtic's favour at Hampden in 2014-15, whatever year it was. He was the one that was the 5th official, standing about 10 yards away from the Lee Griffiths header that was punched off the line by whatever Cali Thistle player it was.
Is that the Ronnie season?
Yeah, the Ronnie, one where we could have won the treble.
Yeah.
And Craig Gordon got sent off and stuff like that. But yeah, there's just a real trend in the last month of managers blaming referees for Celtic winning, and I don't get it. Are they even watching these games? How many shots did we have on target? Or not shots on target, but how many shots did we have against Ross County?
25 to 7. We had 25 shots. They had 7, 8 on target to their 2.
Yeah, referee's fault. And you had 11 minutes or 18 minutes, whatever it was, with an extra man.
No, Sean, I'll go one better. What'd you say? 18 minutes or whatever. Is that including a stoppage time or not?
Yeah, including, yeah.
Yeah. What I was going to say is they're complaining about, the stoppage time. There was 6-7 minutes of stoppage time. So they're playing until Celtic scored. Okay. But they also played those same 7 minutes with an extra player, and they had chances to score. So at the end of the day...
Yeah, you're the home team, man up. What are you talking? Why are you complaining about extra time? You should be happy you're getting extra time to score a goal. Do you mean? Do you have no ambition to win a game?
The only one of their players I want to touch on from that game, right, was Maynard Brewer, the Aussie that they had in goals for them. I thought, all things considered, he had a decent game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I liked Abada being up front as well. When we got all these injuries, I was actually kind of hoping. I felt like Abada had the characteristics of a striker, relative to all the other players that were left standing. So it's good to see that happen. I do think he could do it.
He's got the mobility too, in terms of to do that high pressing.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I want to touch on from this game before we kick onto the cup final, Ralston's goal, magnificent. Yet another crazy good cross from Tom Rogic to get that ball in. That just the angle and the dip on it that got over the keeper and it just dipped in there. I don't care who was in goal, how much form they're in or whatever, that ball would have beat, I would say, probably 95% plus the keepers in the whole world. That be put on a plate for him. All Ralston had to do was just tap it in.
I think you're maybe taking a bit away from Ralston there. I don't think it was a tap in. I think he still had a lot of work to do.
Okay, I used the wrong word there, Sean. All Ralston had to do was get the header on target. Ralston was in the right position. He just had to get his head on it and put it in. But to get the ball over the top, that was what made that chance.
That was definitely a great cross into the right area. I was also impressed with Ralston's physicality and effort and just desire to get it in as well. Like, I thought they both deserved great credit.
Oh yeah, both of them.
I think to kind of tie together what both of you are saying, a cross of that kind of quality, all it really needs is to be redirected and it's a goal. But Ralston did really well to get himself into the position and get the height to do that.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Aye.
There you go, Liam.
Credit to both of them.
You figured it out. All right, so cup final. Any surprises when you saw the starting lineup, other than the obvious?
Yeah, Ralston being on the bench and Kyogo not being in, Kyogo starting, that was a surprise to me.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, all I've got to say, that game, it was pretty open. That's the thing, like, you've got them whinging about a penalty later on, but then you had Taylor with the penalty, so it's springs and roundabouts, basically. At the end of the day, we were the better team. So we got the win. That's the main thing.
There was also a push on Kyogo in the box as well. But that was from open play. But yeah, so look, if they want that penalty, fine, we'll have the 2 penalties that we should have had for the same thing.
Yep.
That's the thing that annoys me about these managers sometimes, is the kind of selective memory of it all, you know. We should have had a penalty, completely ignoring what their own defenders did. And that's not just Hibs, that's pretty much every manager in football, you know. Every manager's guilty of that sometimes, but it annoys me, you know.
I call that the Mourinho effect. When it comes to managers.
They're talking themselves up, really. They're not even talking their own players up. They're giving mitigation for underperformance and whatever, making themselves sound better. But it gets old pretty quickly, you know. Fans only buy it for a week or two, and then it's like, well, do you know what I mean? Like, you can only use it so often.
Yeah. So, for me, with the cup final, a couple of key events that happened during the game. So you had David Turnbull's injury.
Yeah.
Near Bitton coming on. I actually thought that we got more with Bitton in the 6 and pushing McGregor forward into that other role that Turnbull was playing. So I actually didn't think we lost much there. So that was a key point for us. I think Carl Starfelt had an absolute nightmare of a game, like worst game I've seen him play. I wasn't sure if it was Starfelt or Boyata out there. It was just absolutely atrocious. Like, what was he doing? I have no idea half the time. It was like, yeah, he was just all over it. Like, I know your thoughts on him, Sean, and I saw what you constantly bring up about him wanting to only pass with his right foot. He's playing left centre back, and boy, did he get himself in some awkward positions. There was one where he tried to clear it with his left foot and completely missed the ball, and it's gone bouncing past him. So, yeah, like, he had an absolute shocker. And as great as Kyogo was up front, I think we'd be a bit remiss not to just give Joe Hart a bit of a round of applause for the work he did at the back, marshalling the defence. There's the late saves that he did. There, he was as valuable in that whole thing as Furuhashi was for us.
There were some shouts that he should have came for the cross, but it was in that area he could have came for it if it was clear, but there was bodies in the way. I felt it was harsh to call him out for that one because there was bodies in the way. But I would also like to point out, if that had been Ralston on the line instead of Juranovic, that ball doesn't go in the net.
That's what I was about to say. He should have come, but there was a guy at the back post, and Starfelt should have been with his man. So, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually 2 errors in a row for Starfelt there. He makes a stupid back header that gives away the corner, and then he fails to pick up the man for the goal. You know, it's lucky that Kyogo stepped up and did what he did, because that could have gone down as the day that Starfelt cost us a cup rather than Kyogo won us a cup. You know.
Well, the thing is, like,
exactly the same thing last year and never recovered. John Joe Kenny.
Yep.
Gave away a stupid corner, then lost his man at the actual corner.
That's right, against the Huns. Aye, I remember it.
But with that corner,
Aye.
it's like,
Yep.
I don't know about you guys, but sometimes you're watching a game and you just get this feel like, oh, we're going to score or, oh, we're going to concede. And off the back of conceding that corner, and then as soon as that ball was struck, I'm just like, oh, shit, they're scoring. And then before it even got into the box, I was like, yeah, they're about to score.
Yeah, and look, and then yeah, it's a real gut punch, and then like the smoke hadn't even cleared. I barely could see the goal when it went in, but I wasn't even sure it was a goal at first because of the way, generally one of those ones where it's close to the side netting and you're not sure if it's in the net or not. And so like we were all like in the club, like looking at each other, like, is that a goal? And then it's a delayed celebration. It was brilliant, it was great.
Because I was watching it on streaming, actually, like I was, maybe about 20 seconds behind live coverage. So actually, as the ball hit the net, my phone beeped. So I was like, all right, it must have been a goal. And I got the goal alert just as it hit the net. And that was great. But there's a great video. You guys have probably seen it already. If you go on YouTube, whatever, someone does like the countdown, like 30 second or like 1 minute timer of like the Hibs fans celebrating, and while they're still celebrating, Kyogo runs up the park and scores. It's absolutely brilliant.
Some video of them trying to put the flare out or something.
Yeah, so it was great to see. Like something Anne just said repeatedly over the years, like when he was over here coaching with Brisbane, I think he said it back when he was Brisbane manager, and again for Australia, when the opponent is at their most vulnerable is right after they've scored. And the amount of times his teams, you concede and then bang, you're straight up there having a crack and scoring or winning a corner that quickly that you don't give them a chance to celebrate and get settled, just straight back at their throat. It's great to see. And the fact that we scored so quickly took the wind out of them. God, that could have been a shocking one for us where, you concede a dodgy goal and then it's like, oh, great, here we go. And everyone's worried. But that we scored and equalised it so quickly. It was just amazing. Kept our fans up and about, flattened out their fans, and you could see their players were like, oh, shit, what do we do now?
I mean, obviously, the second goal was the goal that won it, but that was the first goal broke them mentally. Definitely. And like you said, Jarrod, you could see it in them. Their heads went down. And
then you're talking about breaking them mentally. That second goal. How quick thinking. We've been talking about Kyogo making those runs and not being spotted except for when Rogic is in the team. And sure enough, he makes that run off the foul that they're saying wasn't a foul. Dickheads. And, he just... that ball over the top, and to see the way Kyogo processed that, it's like, okay, in a split second he goes, okay, ball's coming here, goal's there, keeper's coming out here, and then doesn't even look at the goal. He just lifts it, hits the ball, lifts it over the top, and then it goes. I was on my couch in my couch CSC, and I was up in the air going mental, trying not to wake my wife. It was great.
Yeah, we had quite a Rami in the club as well. It was really good. I mean, like the way they were celebrating that at the end as well, so you could tell him how it was such a unique kind of thing for most of them. Like I know that you've got Rogic, McGregor, Bitton had all been around for most of the recent trophies. Turnbull, I think, has had one crack with that delayed one that we played Hearts. I think Greg Taylor's the same. Mikey Johnson's been in and around, but other than that, it was a new thing for all of them, and I think you kind of need that turnover to keep it fresh, to keep the hunger, and it showed, But yeah, the Furuhashi goal, there's been a lot of comparisons to Larson, and I don't want to go that far. But when you think about the quality it takes to do what you're saying, Jarrod, to not even look up, to lob the keeper like that, I mean, how many strikers have we had in the last 30 years that could and have done something like that? It's Larson, Dembele, and Furuhashi, and that's it. And that's the list.
That was why in our group chat I said it was Larson-esque in terms of that's what it was. Why I said it. It's not. he's the closest thing to him we've had. It's the way he did it that quickly. It was just a natural reaction for him where you can tell sometimes you get a striker. Like, okay, here's one for you. We spent, $4.5 million on Furuhashi? And we spent $3.5 million on Polish Paddy, right? Who left not long ago. Now, do you see... What?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
So do you see him... You see the difference that $1 million gets you? I can't see Paddy scoring that goal. Yet I can see Paddy still making those sort of runs, and I can see him pressing and being the right sort of player for Ange's system. But I can't see him getting that sort of finish. And that's the difference that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, that kind of, it's instinctive. Can't be trained. You've either got that or you've not. And Kyogo's got it. And, yeah, if we can bring in other Japanese players that are even half as good as that, then we're laughing.
And look, I think with his hamstring, he probably was a bit... Like, he barely did anything in the first half, and he's probably a bit off the pace in general because of he's carrying an injury. So it just shows you mental acuity has a big part to play as well, because both goals were he just caught the defence sleeping. He didn't rip them for pace. He just outbeat them in terms of concentration and focus, and his first touch for both goals were incredible, and his finish, there were two really special goals. And he can take all the criticism that he's been getting for missing sitters recently, but all is forgiven.
Yeah.
So the next thing I want to do is, there's been a lot of talk about, Ange's first trophy was Celtic. How do you guys think that sets him up going forward? I think my opinion, it's a great start, because we know this is nowhere near the finished article. We still need to strengthen, and massively. We've got injury issues, we've got no depth. But the fact of the matter is that we're able to get in there, get the job done, win the trophy, and have the big love in for Ange, just get even stronger from the support. I think it's a great starting point. What do you reckon, Liam?
I read an interesting stat the other day that Ange has now got as many medals as Eddie Howe has won games at Newcastle. So there you go.
I thought you were going to go...
just about sums it up.
I thought you were going to go, Ange has got as many medals in 5-6 months in Scotland as Jarrod had.
Well, aye, there is that as well. You could also look at the players and say, yeah, as part of the squad, Owen Moffat now has as many medals as Alfredo Morelos. So read into that what you will. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great for Ange personally, because all those people who were saying gone by Christmas are going to have to eat their words now. We know this is just the start, because he's going to bring in more players in January, probably bring in even more next summer. We might not win the league this year. I think we will, but we might not. But if we don't, we're going to run them a lot closer than we did last year. We're on the verge of something special here. And I always believed, you guys I think always believed as well, but I didn't know Ange as well as you did, Jarrod, from his time in Australia. I knew a bit about him with him being in the J League, and I knew that the J League is a standard that's comparable to the Scottish League and shouldn't be written off to the extent that so many people were writing it off. Yeah. And I'm so delighted for Ange personally, because the guy deserves it 100%. Love the way he handles the media. I loved his humility at full time when he was like, this isn't about me, this is about the whole team. And he made a point of making sure the entire backroom team were in that in the photo shot at the end. And yeah, the guy's just a class act inside and out. And it's also a validation of the J League that it can produce excellent managers. So there you go. Speaking of Ange's humility, and we'll throw to you, Sean. I've got this presser from after the game on the pitch to play for you all.
How is this feeling at the moment? It must be really emotional for you.
Yeah, it is. It is. Obviously, I know the significance of it, and it's been a hell of a ride so far, and we haven't come into this opportunity the easy way, and I'm just so proud of this group of players. They've been the most resilient group I've ever come across with what's been thrown at us the last 5 or 6 months, and super pleased they get the rewards.
Does it feel as if it takes a little bit of pressure off your shoulders when you win the first trophy that you can win?
Nah, mate, it's not pressure. It's what I want. It's why you accept this position. You don't accept this position to sort of shy away from creating special things. And we're still at the beginnings, and we want to enjoy this because, as I said, this group of players has been through an awful lot, and yet risen to every challenge, including today. And we just want to keep going.
You didn't have too much time to be worried about Hibs going ahead because you equalised immediately.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it was the first time they got in our box. I said peace and they scored, and I thought we were really comfortable up until then. But as you said, perfect response, and great way to get back in the game.
Kyogo just keeps on delivering the goods, doesn't he?
Well, he's a brilliant player, but he's a great person too, and he was just determined, even on one leg, to get out there today and help the boys out,
Great to have fans inside today for this cup final, and the atmosphere, something special, wasn't it?
It's everything, mate, because, it's what this football club's about. It's what football's about. As I said, we just pass through these clubs, but the people in here, it's generational support. They've invested their lives, their kids' lives in this football club, and these are the rewards, and we want to give it to them.
Does this feel like it's just the start for you, and you want more success, more trophies?
It has to be. It's the only measure at Celtic that you win it, and then you go on to the next one.
Yep, good interview. And there was another one he gave later where he connected with me on my soul level, where he said he was going to go home and have some Scottish whiskey. So I've been a big fan of Postecoglou and Kyogo from the second they came in the door, and don't go back and listen to any previous podcast. The fact, but no, Postecoglou actually, he sold me really quickly. The two of them, I may have had doubts for a week, but the two of them really turned me around pretty quickly. And yeah, what a great appointment. I'm so glad we got him and not Eddie Howe.
Well, Liam was saying before that it proves that, there's talent in the J League and everything. And for me, I look at it and go, the guy's made in Melbourne, my hometown. I'm like a kid on Christmas Day seeing Ange at Celtic winning trophies and everything. It's just amazing. The coverage we're getting of the team over here, finally, it's unbelievable. And long may it continue.
Here.
Yeah.
So what we'll do... sorry, go on, Liam.
No, I was just going to say that the coverage that Kyogo has brought to Celtic over here has been brilliant as well. Not since the days of Nakamura have Celtic been on the back pages, but Monday morning I bought about 5 or 6 Japanese newspapers. Kyogo was in every single one of them.
Happy days. So what we got is the rest of this week, we've got 2 games coming up in the league. So on tonight, there you go. We got a game in Paisley against St Mirren. The ruling is that they tried to get the game delayed. Not going to happen if they've got 13 fit players. So what are you thinking with that one, Sean? What do you expect from that game?
Well, it should, in theory, be a walkover, but we're also struggling for front players, so it could well end up like the Sevco Dundee United game where you just park the bus with the kids, which is, I'm not criticising Dundee United. Any sane manager would do the same thing, and so I feel like it could easily go that same way. I don't know if we've got enough fit, quality players to even break down a B team that's parking the bus. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not, but I would expect it to be a close one. Just for that reason. The St Mirren are going to have any ambition taken out of them by their situation. Yeah, that's I hope it gets cancelled or postponed. I really do. But that's, I mean, well, I'd prefer we got it and got the 3 points just so that we're not a game behind. But it's a bad situation all round.
I don't know. I want us to play it because we had to play with a makeshift squad last year after Dubai, so too bad to them. And Liam, what are you expecting?
Yeah, well, I feel bad for St Mirren, to be honest, because we were in that situation last season. The first game against Rangers, we had 6 or 7 players missing because of COVID, something like that. And I don't think any team should have to play in that position. I know the rules are the rules. If you've got 13 players and a goalie, you have to play, but I don't think that's fair, especially to teams like St Mirren who have a much smaller squad than we do. I think Celtic, if the game goes ahead, Celtic will win 2-0. I don't think it'll be a great game because, like Sean said, they're going to be St Mirren are going to be in a damage limitation exercise. But yeah, 2-0 Celtic. Not a particularly interesting game, and a game that really shouldn't go ahead because I don't think it's fair on the opposition.
I just want the game to happen in that, we play it, get 2 early goals, by half time. If you're 2-0 up, then great. Sub some guys off. Give Owen off at 45 minutes. Put Dane Murray on, that sort of thing. Give Liam Shaw a bit more game time. Put Iragidi on. Those sort of things, right? You can make 5 subs as long as it's at 3 stoppages. So we can play some of the younger guys and rest guys up. So, yeah.
In a league game, you're only allowed 3 subs. They scrapped that rule?
No.
They did. I'm telling you, they did. They scrapped it at the start of the season. It's only 3 subs in a league game. It's 5 subs in the cups, but 3 in the league games.
That's poor form doing that. That was a good progressive rule. That's a shame.
For some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason it's still in place for the cups, but not for the league.
Well, that's probably why I got confused then. But anyway, play some. Yeah, get some of the younger guys in there, get a run into them, give guys a bit of a rest once the job's done. So, yeah, I'd be happy with that. Yeah, I'll take a 2-0, 3-0 sort of thing. Lawrence from Axom sent me a screenshot of a tweet that he saw, which I thought was a pisser, so I thought you'd like this one, Liam.
Yeah.
Breaking. The SPFL have announced that St Mirren have had so many players out with COVID that they must forfeit their next 2 games against Celtic and Rangers. Celtic will be awarded an automatic 3-0 win, and Rangers will be awarded an automatic 4-0 win. Tavernier penalty 88 minutes. And then our Boxing Day game coming up on Sunday is against St Johnstone away. So,
yeah, look, they're bottom of the league as far as I'm aware at this moment. So, and it's a home. Is it a home game? It is, isn't it?
It's their home game.
It's their home game. Oh, is it McDermott? Well, they might actually come out and play in that case. So that's not too bad. But yeah, I could see it being more comfortable as an away game than a home game. Yeah, I reckon they could sneak one on a set piece because we're still a bit shaky at defending corners and free kicks into the box. So I'll go 3-1 Celtic for that one if it goes ahead. But again, I don't actually expect it to.
Boxing Day games are always volatile. I'm going to go 5-3 to Celtic. There you go.
Hangovers all round.
Yep. I know, I'll have one.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the St Johnstone game will probably be, there's a good chance it's going to be, it's either going to be a 2-1 win to us and they're just going to sit back and just kick the living shit out of us and try and, rough us up. Or it'll be what Liam said and it's just a nice hockey game and you'll see something like a 5-3 or a 4-2 or something like that. So I think we'll win it, but by how much, who knows? Especially with, is that the last one they can have a full crowd for, or is that the first one with 500? I think that's the first one with 500 people.
I'm not actually sure about that. I think it might be. I think it might be the first 500.
Don't think it'll make much difference to their crowds, will it?
I think a few thousand, but still.
I'd like to. You mentioned earlier as well, Sean, about St Johnstone being last in the league, right? And you know how you said before about Kyogo and, you know, you were on board from day one, blah, blah, blah. I remember in our season fearless predictions, we had to guess who the first manager sacked will be, right? And I know it's not the first manager sacked, but my call was the St Johnstone manager, Davison. And they're dead last at the moment. But has anyone else been sacked from the league? Jarrod left. Jack Ross, there you go. Yep. Hasn't no win there. That was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anywho.
It could have easily been the Aberdeen manager, but he survived.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think we've covered off everything. Everyone over there, please stay safe. Don't get too shitty with this whole thing. It's a 3-week thing, and hopefully, you know, they'll move the winter break forward that week, and it makes it less of an issue for the club. But enjoy your Christmas break. Merry Christmas, and hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.